Let's talk meta.
Perfect. Okay, so no surprise, Pantheon still 100% pick ban. Got through once. He won once.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Not getting through. Why would you?
Yeah.
Maybe Riot could have taken a couple extra passes on that one.
Yeah.
Funny how that works out. Funny how this keeps happening. Well, Riot releases newer rework champions, and they keep having to be permabanned because they keep getting buffed, and then whoops, we went too far.
Yep, it happens quite a bit. Syndra obviously really flex. Like, we've seen her have great success in the mid lane and the bot lane. Again, the bot lane, I feel like it's because she's very safe in lane. You can farm from a decent distance. You can clear the wave really quickly. So you can get your support out of your lane and into the rest of the map, right? And the support player can do support things, roam with the jungle, and get all those objectives in that vision that seems to be so important. Like this tournament has all been about mid priority, it seems like.
Right. So I will say this. Is Syndra a flex pick? Absolutely. Has it been a successful pick? Well, currently it's 2-9 with an 18% win rate. So I don't know that I would particularly touch that one. I think the one thing we really learned from this is that the mage bot meta that we were expecting has been greatly exaggerated.
Yeah.
The teams that leaned harder and harder on those those kind of mage bot picks tended to struggle compared to teams that focused on the Xayahs and Kaisas and those kinds of more traditional carries.
Yeah.
I think that's ultimately a lot of like what bot lane pairs work have to do with what supports are viable, right? And when you look at the supports that people are pairing, you're looking at champs with a lot of hard CC and a Nautilus. Gragas has been played a little bit in support. Rakan, Yuumi, like you have enough that can keep these marksmen safe. You'd rather have the damage because the games are going long enough.
Yep.
Of that scaling champ. So I think that's the one thing about the meta that I found to be particularly poignant is just that a lot of these mage bot laners just didn't do well, and a lot of the more traditional bot laners that we expected to struggle very much did. And so I expect teams to really shift accordingly when we talk about how that's going to go.
Yeah, I think a lot of these AD carries are so good at AD carry, like to just try and force them to play mages. Like it's a different play style. It's not their thing. Why would you do that? Because then generally you're putting like your mid or your top on like a Tristana or like a Corki or something. Like Corki, I guess, has kind of been a mid pick for long enough that it's like somewhat useful, but you're basically role swapping two of your players for no reason other than to get the support roaming, right? Which, depending on your support player has and hasn't worked. Right. To some level of or to some degree. The one thing that you touched on that I think is really interesting to me, at least, and the one thing that I wanted to kind of bring up was I don't understand why Xayah, Kaisa aren't pick banned 100% this tournament. Like, I honestly think those are the only two viable AD carries that we've seen. And they're the two AD carries that are like getting all the attention. They're getting the wins. They make the biggest impact on the game when they're played well. Or, in the case of the Kaisa by LWX, when they're played not very well. But to me, at least, those two champions are the two champs that are like, okay, in terms of AD carry, like they're in their own tier. And they're the two AD carries that everybody should be playing, picking, prioritizing in this tournament.
I think it will be closer to 100% pick ban when we get to the next phase. I think that the pick rate for those champs accelerated as the group stage went on. I think people definitely started with some of those more mage picks and then realized that the people focused on the traditional carries were doing better. Mm-hmm. I think that, each of those champions, you look at Kaisa with a 74% pick ban rate, Xayah with a 76%. Those were among the highest. The only champions that were higher, obviously, Pantheon at 100%, Qiyana at 88%, Renekton at 82%, who also holds the leader right now for highest win rate of champions with 5 or more games played at 83%. Yep. He's 10-2 right now. That's a pick. Expect a lot more people to start playing. Akali and Kayle. So those are all very strong picks around them. And I think that, it really just comes down to, as far as like the bans go, I think it always feels bad to ban bot lane champs because most bot laners have very similar pools. And so you're kind of playing against your own interest to a certain extent. And it feels like there are other positions you need to prioritize in terms of lane matchups right now. Getting a favorable solo lane matchup is so important in order for your to find success. So I think that the reason that they're slipping a little bit more than we would expect, given their relative power level, is that bot lane in general is not something that we're seeing a huge priority in from the ban phase. We're looking a lot more, if you look at like most banned champions, it's these solo laners. And I think it's going to continue to be solo laners, because I think that getting the right matchup, and even maybe arguably avoiding the wrong matchup for your solo laners, is such a critical part of getting ahead in this meta.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I guess, it's called the pick ban rate, but it's more just the pick rate. I would like to see those pick rates at least rise, because I agree. I don't think that you should be wasting a ban on them. But definitely you should be trying to pick one of them every single time. And if you don't have first pick, maybe you ban the Rakan. So then that way, because if I had first pick, I think I'd be trying to lock in Rakan almost quite a bit. And then you can get the Xayah, or even if you have to go with a different ADC, well, then they don't have the Rakan Xayah combo. Right? Or if they don't pick Rakan or Xayah, then with your first two, you can take Rakan Xayah, as that's a very safe lane. There's not a whole lot that they can. It's not like they can counter you in any like incredibly significant way with the bot lane pick of their own, and it allows you to kind of get some more information before you put in your solo laners and all that sort of stuff. But yeah.
I mean, I don't. It's one of those things where I wouldn't be surprised if we see people prioritizing their jungle a little bit more moving forward as well. Lee Sin has just not been. Well. Gragas has done very well, and Lee Sin very much hasn't. Elise has been fine, but a lot more like if you can grab the Qiyana, for instance. The Olaf has actually done surprisingly well when we've seen people bring it out. I would not be surprised if we saw more of that coming up, especially from a guy like Jankos. That seems like a great way to get him out of his funk. Would like to see that kind of thing. So that'll be kind of interesting. I will say the 5 champions, for those interested, with the highest win rates with 5 or more games played right now. Renekton and LeBlanc tied at number 1 with 83.3%. Leona following them at 77.8%. She's 7-2 right now. Then you'd have to go to Yasuo at 71.4%, Xayah at 66.7%, and then it looks like it would be Gragas at 62.5%. So those are the champs that we're seeing the most, that are all doing very well. And I would not be surprised to see those continue to be the heavy priorities as we move forward, because all of those champs are champs that, with the exception of, I'd say, probably Renekton, like, are champs that you can find a lot of safe combos for. Renekton, you want to make sure that you have the laning matchup that you want. He's very good in a lot of compositions, but not every composition.
Yeah.
But he's very good against a lot of things that people want to play, which is why he's getting banned out as much, and why it's doing so well when it does get through.
Yeah, and it's been interesting because he actually did really poorly like the first day or two. Maybe it was play-ins.
Play-ins, yeah, I think play-ins were a little bit more.
He was going. It was rough for him, but then as soon as the actual group stage started, he started doing incredibly well. Now, whether that's just a discrepancy in the quality of the top laners, and you're starting to see a lot more solo laners that can pilot him more effectively, or like you said, just the fact that he's so good against so many of the picks that seem to be in the meta right now, I think it's probably a little bit of a combination of both, where he's really found his niche, and the clock's back.
To put a number on that, in the play-ins, he was played 16 times, or 13 times, went 5-8 with a 38.5% win rate. So, I agree. Like, that is a huge gap, and I do think that it is something you can attribute to skill discrepancy, because I think a lot of these top laners we're seeing are just too good to take a lane bully that is as strong as Renekton is right now. And if you don't have a very clear counter, you give that to someone like the Shy, good luck.
Yeah,
like that's a different level of threat compared to some of these teams in the play-ins that we're trying to utilize that pick, who I don't think are as lane dominant. Very rarely find those kinds of leads, and therefore are much less likely to be able to go off of them.